And I think at the minute, because we don't have volume and we don't have stock coming through, and new cars are taking a while, we don't want to necessarily be doing the same thing. So it means that we need to get a little bit more creative, I think, than usual, and it's quite exciting. Sort of looking at like now, we don't have loads and loads of part exchanges coming in for new cars. We've obviously got them starting to trickle through now that we're getting deliveries, but we don't have this massive amount of stock that then we can now we need to discount it. And with the used car prices being so high and managing that, it's, without being cliched, it's unprecedented, isn't it? But that means that then we can really, it's really exciting. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us there to do things a little bit differently than we have done previously.
I don't expect to give you to give us all your secrets, but what in particular is it that content strategy that's really
obviously
changed,
we do have the content strategies there, and we are looking at our blogs and that kind of thing to sort of drive the traffic, and we're looking at sort of how we can deal with leads when they come in. And because I sort of work a lot more on the operations side of things, I do deal with marketing as well, but from the operations perspective, making sure that when people are coming through, that we are managing them in the right way, because we don't have those huge lead volumes again coming through. So it's making sure that we really are making the most of everything and dealing with customers in different ways to how we were before.
If a customer walked into your showroom and spoke to the receptionist and said, I want to know about this car, and the receptionist said, okay, just sit there for a couple of hours and someone will come and give you the answer. Our online showrooms are our biggest showrooms, so we shouldn't be saying that to them either. Oh, okay, you want to know? Okay, well, if you could just log off for a couple of hours and someone will pick up the phone and call you in a minute. It's not the same experience. So we pulled away from using agencies, and we've now got a real team of fully fledged sales executives that are there from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night.
Welcome to another edition of the AM News Show podcast. I'm Tom Sharp, News and Features Editor at AM, and today I'm joined by AM's editor Tim Rose, April Wyatt, Head of Marketing at Waylands Automotive, and Kat Lord, Data Projects Manager at Sandicliffe Motor Group. I hope you enjoy the show. Good to meet you both.
You too.
Kat, April, great to catch up. It's great to have two people from a marketing background predominantly in automotive. It's especially at the moment where the market is so unused to what a lot of people in the sector are familiar with now. It's not got volume coming out of our ears, and there's no real push in the market. I guess first question really was just how you guys have changed or seen the strategy change in a marketing perspective in a market where you're offering things up to customers without that enticement. Is that reflected, April? I'll put that to you.
Well, I think we've seen loads of change in how we market and what our strategy is in the last couple of years. It's you've heard it said a million times, but COVID massively accelerated what we were doing online. But then you've got EVs coming into play, so we're trying to talk to the consumer very differently. And where before the strategy would be it was all about generating leads, it's all about selling cars. Now it's more about just education. So driving traffic to the website, but to educate them on how much it might cost them to have an EV, cost of ownerships, where can they charge. So that really changes the way we do everything, I think. And how the customer journey is changing to online. We've at Waylands, we changed our structure, so we introduced a head of online sales. So we've then introduced a whole online sales team. I could keep going on. It has changed a lot, I think, for us.
So in terms of, I guess you've had to develop a content strategy as much as anything else. It's not just a traditional marketing strategy in that you are offering people advice and places to go to become educated. Yeah,
so it's not just about having the latest new car offers on the website. It's about making sure we've got the relevant content on there too, and in our showrooms. It's not all about what's on the website. And we find you get a lot of information fed from the manufacturers. Autotrader, they're another good one, good source for information. But what we've done now we've gone through that period of time, what we've sort of tried to do is have a look at where people are spending their time when they come onto the website. And we found that actually has differed slightly by the brand that they're looking at. So what we've experienced, our Volvo customers are probably slightly more ahead of the curve. They perhaps know about where they can charge or how much it will cost them to charge, but they're interested in what models we've got, what can they come and test drive. Whereas our MG customers, I would say slightly behind the curve, they spend a lot of time reading the facts and answers and questions and wanting to know how much it might cost them to charge. So, but yeah, content's been a massive thing, and we just keep building on it based on the data that we can see.
It's an interesting dynamic, that Volvo to MG, because I guess the value, offering that MG have got, especially with EV, it means that they've just got such a broad spectrum of potential customer. They might be less committed buyers than the Volvo customer. They'd be coming in pondering an EV rather than determined to buy.
I do think that perhaps our MG customers are slightly more conscious of how much it might cost and how much they'll be spending. So that was an interesting insight that we came across there. They were far more interested in how much it would cost them for the total ownership of the car than perhaps just going straight into test drive.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that the same at Sandicliffe then, Kat, in terms of offering up that information to customers and drawing them in that way?
Yeah, I think one thing which has been a change for us is obviously in the motor industry, then you have those waves of, at this time of year, then we'll run this kind of campaign. At this time of year, it'll be this. And it's pretty much, from a marketing perspective, it's generally the same. It follows a rhythm. And I think at the minute, because we don't have volume and we don't have stock coming through and, new cars are taking a while, we don't want to necessarily be doing the same thing. So it means that we need to get a little bit more creative, I think, than usual. And it's quite exciting. Sort of looking at, like now, we don't have loads and loads of part exchanges coming in for new cars. We've obviously got them starting to trickle through now that we're getting deliveries, but we don't have this massive amount of stock that then we can now we need to discount it. And with the used car prices being so high and managing that, it's, without being cliched, it's unprecedented, isn't it? But that means that then we can really, it's really exciting. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us there to do things a little bit differently than we have done previously.
I don't expect you to give us all your secrets, but what in particular is it that content strategy that's really
obviously
changed?
We do have the content strategies there, and we are looking at our blogs and that kind of thing to sort of drive the traffic, and we're looking at sort of how we can deal with leads when they come in. And because I sort of work a lot more on the operations side of things, I do deal with marketing as well, but from the operations perspective, making sure that when people are coming through, that we are managing them in the right way, because we don't have those huge lead volumes again coming through. So it's making sure that we really are making the most of everything and dealing with customers in different ways to how we were before, which is again has been a learning curve, and it's keeping that traditional element, which is a family run and owned business. Then we really, obviously that's a massive positive for us, but also bringing it into the modern buyer where, we have got all the online purchasing and things, which we didn't have 2 years ago. And just trying to keep the balance, I think, is one thing which we're, is now an important part of our strategy.
You're trying to encourage those part exchanges to keep coming, I guess, and keep customers coming back as well. What do you think's key to sort of customer retention at the moment? It's quite hard to lock people into to keep coming back to your dealership, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that we have a really positive, where we are location-wise, then, we cover a lot of one area of the country. So I think from our perspective, then it's making sure that every time a customer comes in across every department. So for like our servicing and things like that, then by making sure that we give a customer a really good experience, then that's helping us to drive that sales. And for things like we've invested in technology in the sort of the servicing department, and to making sure that we're keeping in touch with customers all the way through, not just when we want to sell something, because we don't have the sales and things all the time. So it's that relationship building and the nurturing of the customer that we've been really sort of concentrating on, and just keeping in touch and making sure that we're kind of always there through that journey, so that then when it does come, that they go, do you know what, now, you know, I've looked on your valuation tool and I can see that I'm going to get a really good price on my car. Making sure that we are their local, family-friendly sort of dealership that then they're going to come back to. So rather than it just being, we're the cheapest price, or, you know, we'll give you free fuel, or whatever it is that we sort of really used to use a lot of in the industry. And I think now it's more about having that really good relationship with our customers and making them feel like we are going to look after them.
Because that's been a real challenge for the industry for forever, hasn't it, really? That ultimately customers may buy on a 3-4 year buying cycle. In the meantime, you'll see them once a year probably for the service, but actually keeping your business in their mindset, and particularly in a market nowadays where it's so easy to be disloyal. It's so easy to go onto Google or Autotrade or wherever and find another another dealer that you can go to. It must be a real challenge for dealers to overcome that now.
Yeah, I think especially with the fact that now you don't even have to go to a dealership. You can get your car delivered to your door like you would with your Amazon shopping. That's sort of now what and I think that as a dealer group, then obviously, you know, we're looking at how we can still stay in the market of that, and, you know, how we need to change to compete in that area. But at least at the minute, then, no, it may not be that somebody who purely wants to buy online our dealership experience won't compete with that, because that's not what they want. They don't want to spend an hour having a cuppa and looking round and, you know, discussing, oh, what does this colour look like in person and things. So I think that it's very different customers, and it's at the minute, then I think we do we're really strong in our dealership experience, but then it is, how do we still tap into that alternative and sort of and compete with that.
I guess that's what you've seen as well, April. Is it with your development of an online sales department? It's that different customer dynamics, but might be the same customer, might be a new customer, but certainly someone who's looking for a different journey. Yeah,
but I think we've said right from the beginning that it's not about. You don't have two pots of customers. The customers that want to come to the showroom and the customers that want to buy online. It's just about making sure that they can do what they want when they want, and we do see that. Very rarely do you actually get someone that clicks through that entire journey and then we deliver the car to them. They at points do want to talk to the site, or they do want to come and test drive the car. But I think your point about tapping, it's harder now to get customers. We found with our online sales team now that live chat, for example, we've all been there and we go, yeah, we've got live chat, we're available 24/7 now, ticks a box. But are you actually giving them what they need out of that service? Yeah. And we found actually we weren't, and it was a bit of a frustration of mine. I've got visibility of everything that's coming into the business, all the leads, and I'm just looking at these conversations thinking, it's not enough. We're not actually giving the customer what they want. And when we introduced the sort of new structure, so we've now got the head of online sales, who also, Paul really understands the sales journey. So you kind of put the two together, and what we've come up with now is a really great experience for the customer. And I think if you look at it, so if a customer walked into your showroom and spoke to the receptionist and said, I want to know about this car, and the receptionist said, okay, just sit there for a couple of hours and someone will come and give you the answer. our online showrooms are our biggest showrooms, so we shouldn't be saying that to them either. Oh, okay, you want to know? Okay, well, if you could just log off for a couple of hours and someone will pick up the phone and call you in a minute, it's not the same experience. So we pulled away from using agencies, and we've now got a real team of fully fledged sales executives that are there from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. Year to date, from our website, 44% of inquiries have come through live chat, because that's how people want to communicate now. They want to talk, and they want to ask the question, and they want to get the answer there and then. And I think that's how we at Waylands have definitely tapped into that challenge of, you say it's easier to lose customers, but I think it's also opportunity to win customers as well now. So,
how much is your strategy being influenced or dictated by perhaps like the manufacturer you're with? We've done a lot of work or covered a lot of Volvo's development of their online strategy and things. So I guess them as a manufacturer, they're sort of leading the way the customer journey might go. Has that sort of empowered you to do that with other brands, or is it, which way does it go? How do you sort of?
That's okay. Interesting question. I think both ways, really. We've had lots of really great meetings with the guys at Volvo about what we're doing and how we can sort of give them an insight as to how we've done it. But equally, they give us, some really good insights into how they're doing it or how they'd like to do things moving forward. I guess the brands that we work with, Volvo are probably the most further forward thinking. And they are a higher percentage of our group of sites. So yeah, I think it works both ways. We help them, they help us, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to get to the same goal, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's strange how I guess the retail model is evolving to sort of guide everyone down that path as well. There is a most efficient way of doing it, isn't there?
I think it's interesting. When I first joined as a journalist, kind of joined AM almost 20 years ago now, you wouldn't have possibly envisaged the level of technology that's now available to dealers to keep in touch with customers in different ways, to automate some of it or decide not to automate some of it. And it seemed, in fact, a few years ago, it seemed that there was quite a lot of momentum towards automating some of the customer contact. But actually, I personally see that there's been a bit of a step back from that, because I think dealers have realised, like you were saying, people want meaningful communications. And if they're going to be on live chat, they don't want a response saying, "Okay, I'll find out about that. Can I get back to you in the morning?" They want somebody to help them there and then. Otherwise, they'll go find somebody else who will do that. Does that pose challenges in itself for the business, that your teams are having to adapt to all this technology and all new customer expectations all the time, I guess?
Yeah, I think I do think it is a challenge, because some people, I guess, that have just come into the industry, it's all they know. It's what they're being taught. It's how they're being taught. Others that have been in the industry for a lot longer have got to try and adapt to it. And we definitely have seen a bit of a challenge around trying to change that culture. Mainly Paul, because he's got his online sales team, and I think at times they've been seen as a bit of a threat internally to our dealerships. They've now realised that it's not a threat; it's actually added value to them, and a majority of them have come around to the idea, and they're really supportive of it, and they're all working together really well now. I think it will continue to be a challenge with technology. Even in myself included, I'm not great with tech, but you've got to go. You just got to keep going with it, haven't you? You can't fall behind. So that's how I view it. Really, just test and learn and keep going. Keep going with the flow.
Yeah. Kat, Sandicliffe is technology. You sort of mentioned some earlier. Technology still, I guess. Yeah, kind of pushing the business forward as well.
Yeah, definitely. And again, we have similar issues with some people who, have been in the industry for a long time and really know what what they're doing, but then we're kind of coming in and going, well, we just need to change this and we need to change this, and doing online order forms, for example, like, that kind of thing. And it's like, no, but a customer signs a bit of paper, and it's like, no, we're going to do it online now. But, with things like, we've got some really good technology that does then really help. So, like, with customers expecting a response really quickly, then our calls, as soon as somebody puts an inquiry in, then we will respond to that customer and ring them immediately from, the contact team. So it's things like that where customers now expect an immediate response. They don't, like you were saying with live chat, they don't want to wait. So even with inquiries when there's a form fill, then now we will contact them immediately, because that comes in as an inbound call and then it gets connected to the customer. So it's things like that that's where we're using the technology. And then within the dealerships as well, obviously, then there's constantly things that we're evolving, and we've got like communication with instead of customers calling in, then we have it's similar to a live chat. It's not exactly a live chat, but we have a messaging system that we can then use with customers. So rather than them ringing and being on the phone on hold, then they can communicate that way. And although it's not always instant reply, it doesn't have that frustration of, I'm on the phone and I can't get through, because that is really frustrating. And then it's already put in, potentially a negative view from the customer's perspective. So by adding in things like that and using it well, but still having that conversation, and that it's not automated, it is still a real person on the other end of it. It's, I think, trying to get the best of both worlds, using the technology but still having the personal touch there. Obviously, we do automation as well, but that's a kind of mixture of the two, I think, is a good way to be.
I guess you also, like you said earlier about the online sales team, you get people of different skill sets, and people who are probably more willing to come into the industry perhaps because of the technology now that they will be using. And then you've got the traditional people who came in because they're really good face-to-face with people, and they had that empathy and the sales skills. So if anything, we've kind of broadened the role and broadened the talent pool perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree that maybe people who, and like we were discussing, that if you go into a sales role, then generally the hours are quite long. It's not 7 days a week, but you will be working across 7 days. And I think that now then the opportunities are for a bit more flexibility there, which I think a lot of people want in their life.
I think the point you're making about technology as well, though, is there is loads of technology, but I think you have to be careful not to get caught up in it's the latest, newest, let's just do everything, because it's not always what the customer wants. And yeah, you've got some of the slightly more experienced sales execs who can't quite adapt to the new online culture. But equally, you do still have customers that want to come into the showroom. They want to see their sales exec that they've bought their car from for the last 10 years, and that's how they want to do it. So I think we can see how things are evolving. There's loads of things, tech that we can start getting stuck into and getting involved in, but we mustn't forget those people that aren't quite ready to come with us on that journey yet.
How's the visibility of customers through digital sort of enquiries and communications? How's that developed the marketing strategy that you might follow? Because once upon a time, every bit of information you had about a customer was filled in on a form. Constantly hearing about empowering staff to fill out the address correctly and the service schedule and the MOT and get all that down. But now you've got real visibility of a customer just through perhaps their internet behaviour or the nature of their inquiry. So how's that empowered you to change the way you market, perhaps?
I think for us, around the content conversation that we were having earlier, that's data that you just would never have had. You'd just totally finger in the air and take a guess, wouldn't you? I think that's what the customers want, whereas now we know that that's what the customers want, and that does that's made a really big difference. But I try not to get too caught up, because you can get, I don't know if you find the same problem, but you can get so caught up in the data because there is just tons of it now. just so much of it. And sometimes I have to take a step back and go, okay, I've just gone down a wormhole there, but actually that journey was only relevant to like 1% of our audience. Let's just park that and come back up here and find the information that can help us. But it definitely, it really does change. I love data and numbers. That's how I work. I like to get stuck into it, and then I'll take that away and see what I can do with it. But I try not to get into too many wormholes, because it's great that we can see all of this information. We can see all these different journeys that the customers are taking. But I have to be really careful not to get too caught up in those numbers. Definitely.
I guess that's what you're doing, Kat, is it? Getting caught up in those numbers?
Well, what we're trying to work on at the minute, or, you know, what my kind of focus is obviously we have all of this information, and it's not going down the wormhole and getting too sucked into it, but also how do we use that really, really, really well, not just from a marketing perspective, but from the sales team. So it's giving them the information which they need, but without just totally overwhelming somebody to the point where they go, oh no, I don't want to deal with that anymore. That's way too complex. There's just way too much there and I don't know what to actually pick out. So we're still sort of trying to work that out at the minute, but it's, and just really make the most of it without overdoing it.
Has this been a period, do you think, where, you know, there's been a lot of talk about stepping back. Has this last 2 years really allowed you guys, your business, to do that and take a bit of time to explore that data and the way you approach things?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been, it has changed massively over the last couple of years, and it's from how customers behave changing, and then how we're behaving at site changing, and, you know, that steep learning curve that we all went on when we had to sort of close the dealerships. That was, I think that gave us a lot of scope to then really sort of sit and think, right, okay, how, when we go back to normal, what is it that we're going to take that we've learned and then carry that forward and develop it, but take the time to develop it rather than sort of being a bit of a rabbit in the headlights and thinking we just need to do something now and then sort of finessing it.
Did you have everything in place at Sandicliffe, or was there a bit of a fast pedal at the start there to get, you know, online retail and all those things in?
Yeah, there was a little bit. Luckily, we'd just been sorting a buy online platform on the website just before we went into lockdown. So there was that, and we sort of had something, but it was obviously really new, and it was then trying to work out. And there was, you know, a little bit of a, oh, does it actually work? And we need to put something live now that maybe, I mean, luckily it did work, but it was one of those where I would have liked to have tested it for a little bit longer. And obviously the connections between the website and the DMS and all of that, and making sure that all of that did work. Like I said, luckily it did, but it was a bit of a stressful time at first.
But what sort of trend have you seen in terms of, you know, a proportion of online inquiries and sales even? Has that lifted up during COVID and then dropped off a bit? Are we seeing that, or?
I mean, we still get a lot. So reservations online are still, you know, ticking along pretty much the same as how they were during COVID. We obviously now don't do as much where we deliver the vehicle to the customer, and, you know, we're getting people who are taking the majority take delivery in the dealership, which obviously we didn't have before. But from a online inquiry perspective and an online reservation, that's pretty much stayed the same.
Is that the same at Waylands, April? Have you sort of retained that online momentum?
Yeah, we have. Again, I think it's down to the online sales team. They are there constantly. They've got their own targets that they try and reach, and they do a really, really good job. Last couple of weeks has gone a little bit quiet online for us, but I think that's probably everywhere. But year on year, you know, our web visits are up 43%, so we're still in a pretty good place, I think.
How much of a challenge has it been sort of coming back into the showrooms, taking down the barriers and what have you, and starting to do those physical events again, the traditional car retail, you know, get the showroom full of people and get the inquiries? That must have been a really odd situation? Kat, how have you got back to that?
Well, we did a on-site event, a big sort of VIP style event, which was, we did do one last year, but again, that was still in that sort of in-between stage of doing more online, doing a bit in the showroom. But do you know what? Having the showrooms busy and having that buzz again, I think it's really exciting, and it's something which I think we have missed, and having that real interaction with customers. So although I just think it's a really positive thing that we're back closer to how we were in some respects, and I think that it gives the sales teams, it uplifts them again, and it's exciting from a marketing and operations perspective to be able to do that kind of thing, which we know that we enjoy and the team enjoy and customers like it too.
Has that been the same with Waylands, April? Are you back on the launch mission of getting people in the showroom?
Fully open, and we've just done a similar event actually weekend just gone, and inundated with appointments. And we did during sort of when we were in and out of lockdowns, we had the option for we did all the virtual appointments, via Zoom and things like that, and they were actually also really successful. But I think people do prefer to come into the showroom and get involved, and
there's
that human interaction.
There's a reason why those events have always worked. It's because buying a new car is an emotional experience. It's an exciting experience, and that helps build that around it, doesn't it? Yeah. The sitting back and kind of looking on the screen. I don't know about you, but after two years or whatever of doing pretty much everything on the screen, I'm just sick of it, and I want to get like face to face with people again. And you're not going to get that emotional experience if you're buying online. It will work for some people, but the opportunity to be invited to a VIP event, come to the showroom, have some really good engagement, and hopefully go away with a deal that you're really happy with, there's a lot of value in that still.
Yeah, because I think what really drives people online is their lack of time. Everyone today, we're all so busy, and so it's easier to just go online and find the answers you need, or talk to someone on live chat and get your answers. But if you've got an event and you've had the invite and it's going to be next weekend, I think it's a nice sort of, let's go to the showroom and have a look at that car and touch it and feel it and drive it. Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. And in a way, the time that it's taking to buy a car will reduce over time. The more, going back to the technology piece and the piece that you don't necessarily have to sign a piece of paper, the more of those more laborious points in the process that you can let technology smooth the process, then it lets the customer focus on the exciting parts of it, I guess.
Yeah, and it makes us more efficient. So I think that's the sort of conversation we've been having with our teams in the showrooms, is if we can get this done digitally, get this done online, it makes you more efficient and you can sell more cars.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the time that it takes from lead to sale is decreasing, because customers are doing the online content bit and they're talking to us on live chat and things, at which point it's not a lead which is necessarily landing with the showroom teams. So then that time is shrinking down, which, is something which is a bit of a change, but I don't think is necessarily a bad thing from either perspective.
Are customers still coming to dealerships from a digital perspective? Are they still coming down the same routes? We saw the market saturated for a period by lots of digital marketplaces, most of which is still with us, some huge businesses. Are customers still very reliant on that route, or looking at their behaviour online? Do you think you can market yourself online as a dealership and a destination, and are you still as reliant on the digital marketplaces, I guess, is what?
I think so. One thing which we're noticing is that we get a lot of duplication. So we'll have a customer who will find a vehicle on one third-party site and they'll find the vehicle on another third-party site. They might find a slightly different one, and then they'll also inquire on our website. So I think that we are still on a wide range of them, and I think that's because it's always that fear of, if you're not there, then if that customer is looking on that site, are they going to find a competitor and go there instead? Even though they are still inquiring on our website, we've now got 3 vehicles which they're interested in across our group. Alternatively, could it be that there's 1 vehicle that they're interested in that they've sent a lead to, and then they've sent 2 leads to another dealership? So it's always that, yes, if we get them inquiring on both, but at the same time, if we come off that, then what will happen? And I suppose it's that constant, it's the unknown, isn't it? Unless you pull the plug, you don't know, but do you want to make that decision?
It's a big part of your marketing budget, that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Is that the same for you, April?
It is, yeah. It's that fear of coming off, and we have this conversation. I'm constantly, because it's a massive part of our marketing budget, and I'm always telling the guys, just remember how much that lead has cost you, or just remember how much it is for cost per sale on there. Happy, let's stay on there because we don't want to come away. And I think those that you see who do come away, they do go back. It's the fear of coming away, but it is a big chunk of our marketing spend, and I guess you'd expect it to, but our own website performs so much better. So when I'm comparing things, side by side, like for like, I'm always just thinking, but if we put all of that money into our website, what could we get? But it's about being there for the customer, and we know that the customer will go to these certain marketplaces, and it's about being there.
Yeah,
and getting that visibility as the destination for your geography. Is that very much via social media now? You're trying to reach out to customers that way and gain visibility in your market area?
Yeah, it's social media, yes, definitely. But also just in your PPC and making sure we've got all of our relevant content for SEO to, index into Google and things. But yeah, we geographically, our sites are all fairly close anyway. So that works really well for us from when we're marketing geographically. You can kind of pinpoint that spot in the middle, and then you've hit everybody within a 50-mile radius. So yeah,
it's a difficult strategy, isn't it? Social media to get right. We see some dealer bosses and CEOs responding directly to customers. How do you go about tackling, complaints or inquiries when they come in via Twitter or Facebook?
Yeah, I'm still doing that myself. So customers like to go to Facebook to complain. They don't go to Facebook to tell you you've done a great job. They go to Google for that. But luckily for us, we don't get that many. So if we do, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is or what time it is, I can just pick that up, send it straight into the site, and we just deal with it. But it's me replying to all of those at the moment. But we don't get too
phone
many,
dinging away in your pocket, but not very often. Yeah, quite right.
Yeah.
Is that the same at Sandicliffe? Are you having to deal with social media yourself, Kat? Who's in charge of that?
It's our team, so it's split across. I don't deal with them as much, but there's a couple of us who do deal with that, and they just respond to everything which comes in. And luckily we don't get that many complaints that come in, luckily, but again, when they do, then it's just a case of making sure that they're dealt with and that the customer feels heard, because generally it'll only be because they're only on that platform to complain because they don't feel like they've been heard previously. So it's just really important to make sure that we give the customer the validation and pass it over to the right person and make sure that it's picked up as soon as possible.
How have you managed in recent months in particular this extended lead time that we're seeing in the market? I mean, customers, all right, they're excited to get the car, but when it's 6-8 months down the line, potentially, how much of a concern has that become?
I think that if you want to buy a new car at the minute, it doesn't matter which manufacturer or which dealer you go to, it's the same everywhere pretty much. So I think that although it may be frustrating for a customer, it is that, the sooner that you get your order in, then you will, if you wait, then you're just gonna have a longer lead time. So I think it must be frustrating for customers buying cars, and all we can do is just try and keep in touch with them. And although we may still not have an exact date, it's just that constant, just checking in, just to let you know, I'm checking on your order and it'll be here as soon as possible. As soon as I hear something, then I'll let you know. And it's having that, again, making sure the customer doesn't feel forgotten, but also accepting that it is out of our control, and there's not much that we can do about it.
Customers being fairly understanding, do you think?
Yeah, most of the time, to be honest, because we're telling them as well. It's not that when somebody's placing an order, we're saying, "Oh yeah, it'll be here in 6 weeks," because you're just going to end up with a really unhappy customer. So I think as long as we're honest and upfront, there's been enough in the media that a customer knows that is the case. We don't generally have an issue over that as long as we continue to communicate. And I think that's the key, is keeping that communication with the customer. Once you lose that, then yes, you do start to have, or potentially will have, unhappy customers, but keeping that open is the way to go.
I guess the industry's where we've had years where dealers have been contacting people earlier to renew them, or PCP customers to turn them, because the supply's there and the incentives are there. If anything now, I guess you're still contacting those customers quite early on in their PCP before termination, but purely to allow for that lead time. Would that be the case?
We've tried to be really transparent with that, actually, and all of our existing customers in all quarterly newsletters. Is just to be really transparent with that message. If you're thinking about changing your car, if you're thinking about getting a new car, you need to do it sooner rather than later, because this is a situation, it's out of our control. We're not really sure when it's going to be resolved, but this is us telling you, if you want to order a car, you need to do it sooner than later. So we're trying to set the expectation before they even get to that point. And like you were saying, though, we're actually trialling a new little at one of our sites, a new platform with one of our partners around how we can keep in touch with these customers, because some of these lead times could be 9-10 months. How do you keep that customer excited about their car for that long period of time? And in all due respects, once the salesman's sold the car and done those final few bits, he's moving on to the next customer. So we're playing around with just sort of at which point we should be contacting them about which products or accessories, and how we can keep them excited. But although it's a challenge because that gap between order and delivery is so big, it's also now more important than it's ever been because it's so big, and we've got to try and keep in contact with them.
Yeah, relationship building.
Keep them excited. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, going forward, looking at the various challenges that are being presented to the industry, what do you see as the biggest challenge, Kat, that's in your current job role? What are the big targets that you've set yourselves?
For me, then we're sort of looking at our internal systems at the minute and really deciding on how we can make the most of them. And again, I think it's having that time to step back and, when we've got the DMS and we've got manufacturers and things, and I think making sure that we don't have the breakdowns between them, and making things work a little bit slicker. So that's kind of my biggest challenge at the minute, is trying to not just sticky plaster over things, but to actually take it back to the drawing board a little bit and go, okay, so what do we need our systems to do? And going forward with buying online or EVs, etc., then how do we make sure that our infrastructure is really strong to serve our customers and our staff, and make sure that we are making their lives as easy as possible, because when they're happy, then it means that the business is just more successful.
Absolutely. And for you, April, what would you say
I think the biggest challenge is keeping up with the change that's constantly happening, and all the acquisitions that are happening around us and the mergers, and trying to keep up with what the customers want now. It all moves so quickly, and I think we're at a point now where we need to really sit down and think about which bits of this do we want right now? Which bits of this will we maybe get to in a year's time? But putting ourselves in a position where we can pivot if we need to, because it's all just changing so quickly. I think for me, in my role, that's the biggest challenge. One day we want this, and the next day, actually, no, we're going to do something else now, and you've got to be able to react so quickly.
Absolutely, and all the while the product keeps coming, doesn't it? So you've got EVs to promote and all the rest of it. So do you think you're going to be able to create enough of a buzz around EV to get customers into them ahead of this 2030 ban that we're seeing?
I think so. And I think as an industry, we're all doing it collectively. And I think if we continue to do that collectively, we will, because the consumer will just keep hearing that same message consistently. But the brands that we work with are all quite ahead of the curve with their EV models anyway. So we're in a good position with our product. And I think if we just keep adapting what we've got as an offering, the content that we've got on our website, the things that we've got in the showroom, if we can keep educating those customers, then I think we've got a good chance. But who knows what will happen? We weren't expecting COVID 2 years ago. That threw everything off, didn't it?
It all ties in though, doesn't it? The EV story and the online retail and the omnichannel customer journey. It's all part of the same picture, isn't it? So I guess you guys are seeing that, and your streamlining effort will come to fruition at the right time, will it, Kat?
Hopefully, yes, that's the plan. But yeah, it's just making things easier, and I think there's a lot of things which have been added on where technology is developed and we've gone, we'll have that, and it works. But then how do we, rather than it just being something which has been stuck on the side, how do we make sure that everything really works together? And I think is it a challenge? I think it's an opportunity, to be fair, more than a challenge. So.
Yeah, certainly if the outcome's right, it'd be well away.
I'm interested in hearing from you both whether there are, outside of automotive, are there any other sectors or businesses that you kind of look to and think, well, actually they're quite inspiring in the way that they approach things? Do you sort of look for outside influences in some of the work that you do, or your kind of thinking, perhaps?
I can't think, other than all the obvious that we took. I had a really good experience with Amazon recently that I told everybody about, because it was actually their live chat, and it was a bot. The entire thing was a bot, and what happened? I'd ordered something and it didn't arrive, so I went on there to tell them it hasn't arrived, and the bot knew which item I was talking about, sent me another one free of charge, and that was all done. And I came back into the office, and I was telling everybody I had a really good experience. It was really clever. But they've got the money and the technology to get to that point. We don't have that. We can't have bots that do that right now, which is why we've got real people that do it. But I can't think any other than the obvious I can't think of anyone that really I tend to really focus on.
Kat, do you?
Yeah, I think it is like a collective. When you have a good experience, then it's okay, what can we kind of learn from that? But I think as well, when you have a really bad experience, how can we make sure that we don't fall down that same rabbit hole? So from a live chat perspective, then there was a delivery company who I had an issue with, and they have no call centres. They only have a live chat, which turns out isn't a person, it's a bot, and it was awful. And it was that if you don't have the technology to do it, like being an Amazon, maybe you just shouldn't do it, because it doesn't give, all it does is exacerbate a problem if a customer's already got an issue. So I think that it's learning from things like that is is useful to make sure that we don't make mistakes that other companies may do.
I agree. If you're going to do it, you've got to do it properly.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a while since people automatically said John Lewis, isn't it?
It is. It shows. Well, I think John Lewis isn't quite the same as it used to be.
No, maybe not.
Everything goes in peaks and troughs, doesn't it? But it's interesting though, the piece when you asked the question about kind of EV adoption and stuff, it made me think. Actually, we're now getting to the point where we've got some quite, to be a bit crude about it, but some sexy EVs in the market. And to kind of relate that to the mobile phone, you go back to the kind of early 2000s, nobody knew they wanted an iPhone because it didn't exist at the time. And then Apple launched the iPhone and revolutionised the market. And with EVs, as we kind of progress along that, I think it's going to be much easier for consumers to adopt an EV because the industry's learning all the time, new products coming out, it's getting more and more attractive. So really, I guess it's kind of in dealers' hands to make the most of that in the years ahead and help the public make that switch.
Yeah, I think it's happening naturally because I drive an EV and I've noticed that there's a lot more on the road now, partly because there can be issues sometimes with charging and getting into a charging bay. You know, there has been a couple of times when I've had to wait, not for very long to be fair, because they're so quick now. So, you know, when you get on one that'll give you 80% charge in 30 minutes, then it's, you know, it is definitely getting better. But I have noticed there's a lot more EVs just on the road, you know, when you're kind of driving around and you're seeing the little green tag on the number plate and things. So I think that the industry or the consumers will just pick it up automatically, as well as the marketing efforts which dealers are putting into.
But it's like you just said with the iPhone, people didn't know they wanted it, and it's, if we can get the bums on the seats VVs, they'll soon realise that they do want it.
Yeah.
And now we can do that. Now all the restrictions have gone. We can really start to get people in those cars.
Yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity for the industry. Good times are ahead.
Yeah.
Better than the last couple of years, certainly.
Yeah, it can't get any worse than that, can it?
No.
Don't say
Never
that.
say never. Yeah, never say never. Oh dear.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
Lovely. Well, thanks for joining us
Thank you.
today.
Thanks
It's
for
great
having
to get
us.
you into the studio and catch up. We'll keep in touch. Lots of
definitely.
interesting conversation to be had. So, Kat, April, thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your
Thank you
time.
very much.
Thanks.